out of 5 women, even today, who get cervical cancer in this country have not had a Pap test in the past 5 years. So the moral of the story for women in this room is get your Pap smears today. Pap test saves lives.
I thought, oops, I better go see my gynecologist because I hadn't been in 5 years. It was cervical cancer. And God placed this most wonderful oncologist in my path. She brought me in, treated me very aggressively, and in the last round I felt like I wasn't going to live. Then they said I was all clear. So I was ready to go back to work because prior to this whole thing, I was a home care administrator and I was doing very well. I'm a single mom, but I was doing very well, so I really wanted to get back to work. Not going to happen. I was driving down the road and I had a seizure. So a week later, I had a MRI of my brain, and I had a metastasis to my brain. He told me I wouldn't live a year. And I walked away from his office saying, I'll get a second opinion.
My biggest achievement to date is I'm still breathing. It's amazing to look out and see a room full of survivors who are taking responsibility. And most impressive is that you're fighting for a change for people who haven't been diagnosed yet.
I was never offered the Pap test. I actually didn't even know anything about cervical cancer. So to me, it was like, oh my God, I have cancer. It's just that we've got to spread the word. I mean, women have got to get out there and get Pap tests because it's, you know, you got to know ahead of time. And the sooner you know, I mean, the more chance of survival you have.
I was diagnosed with cervical cancer originally back in June of 2000. So August of 2000, I had a hysterectomy and was considered in remission, if you will. About 2.5 years ago, we found out I had a recurrence of cervical cancer. The prognosis, what the doctors say, is less than 6 months.
You know, there was a death in England last week, unfortunately, of a 14-year-old. Got the vaccine and died 3 days later. Headlines all over Europe and the US, vaccine causes death. Autopsy was done. She had a cancer that nobody knew about. She died of the cancer. We had 6 deaths in the vaccine trials. They were all car accidents. Was that caused by the vaccine? And mostly what we saw are just these minor things, you know, mostly sore arms. Other than that, really safe.
This is the same kind of prevention that you would want any child to have that's a vaccination. You don't want them to get the flu, so you give them the flu vaccine. And you allow your daughters to get Pap smears, which is a marker for sexual activity, and yet that doesn't come with the same stigma as the HPV vaccine. Yet they both are tackling the same topic and trying to prevent cancer from happening.
There are 2 vaccines now available worldwide, and both vaccines protect against 70% of cervical cancers, which means for the other 30%, Pap tests are still required. Both vaccines are preventive in nature, which means they work best when a person gets it before they're exposed to the virus. They're not therapeutic, which means they cannot treat that particular type of the virus once it has entered the body. Isn't prevention better than detection?
It would be so great if this vaccine were just gotten as a matter of course, that you didn't even think about it. It was just something that everybody got. It really doesn't matter how many sexual partners you have. You could just have one and still get this thing.
It can be conventional intercourse, genital intercourse. It could be manual genital intercourse, which means that a session of heavy petting can transmit HPV. And this is very important with teenagers because they're not having sex, they're just kissing and interacting with each other.
Something that stuck with Jo that she talked about often was what Dr. Felix last year mentioned. If the vaccine was out there and people were aware, this could be obsolete in 10 years. And she often shared that afterwards, and that's something that we want to carry on for her. And Jolene was angry. Jolene left us at the end of the 5 years very angry. It was not something she ever came to terms with, that she was leaving her 3 children on those terms was something that she felt like she really didn't deserve.
It's a whole sad story, and it's very preventable. No mother should ever have to. I remember one of the comments she made was, do you think I'm going to be able to see my kids from heaven? And I remember thinking, no mother should ever have to ask that question. So I think this is just a preventable disease.
So if we can talk about it more, we can get it out in the open more and get some education about it, I think we'd be much better off. People would know to go in for their routine PAPs. People would know to, look for the signs of it, and not as many people would die from it. And I think that's the ultimate goal. And it's important to remember that cancer is not, they say, women problems, or, it's vaginal cancer, it's cervical cancer. It's human cancer. It affects everybody. Because it not only affects the people who have cancer, for instance, not only affected me, it affected my 4-year-old little girl, it affected my family. It is human cancer. They're now showing that there's a direct correlation, between HPV and throat cancer among all these other cancers. So it is affecting boys, it is affecting men.
There is this myth that men do not suffer from any HPV-related diseases, whereas the fact is HPV causes nearly as many cancers in men as does cervical cancer in women. And men can also transmit the virus to women and increase their risk of cervical cancer, a fact that cannot be ignored.
There's always that worry in the back of your mind, is this something that's going to recur? And it's something that we go through as cancer survivors. And I'm checked every 3 months, and always hoping for the best. But it's a new reality. It's a new normal for us.
The new normal. Cancer changes you. And I've heard this countless times, even when you're in remission. Every ache, every little pain that you have is the cancer back. And that lingers. That doesn't go away. Give yourself permission to be angry, to cry, to be sad. But the key is not to stay here.
Everybody keeps talking about your new normal, and I do too. I say, okay, this is my new normal, But what happens when things keep happening? They keep happening, and you have to keep adjusting your normal. And,
You're absolutely right.
It's just...
Focus on the next step. What makes you happy? What is important to you? It's a journey of reinterpretation. I had a patient who bought at least 6 or 7 wigs when she was going through treatment, and she named each of them. And she would wear each wig according to her mood. So when she'd come into my office, I knew exactly who was walking into my office by the wig that she had on. It was amazing. And then when her hair started to grow in, she had so much fun. She dyed it all different colors. She would spike it up. She really put such a positive spin on it, and she would say to me, every day that I have hair is a good hair day. She had the best attitude.
I was told several years ago I would be dead by now, and I'm not, so that's a big accomplishment. I got mad and decided I was going to kick cancer's ass. So one way of doing that, when I knew I was going to get into chemo and lose my hair, I thought, well, I could let the drugs take my hair away, or I could take my hair away before the drugs, kind of like giving me a little bit of a power flip. So my girlfriends and I went to a very shishi salon, and we shaved my head and had a head shaving party. And each one took a turn shaving my head. We brought champagne, and it was probably the most beautiful spiritual experience I dealt with in terms of the cancer. And when I came home, my husband and son already shaved their heads in solidarity. So it was beautiful, it was funny, and it was the way I wanted to go about it. I'm still here every day I wake up. Yeah, I might be in pain, I might be vomiting, I might be doing this and that, but I am alive. And it's all about, I think, really kind of re-examining what is important to you. And it gave me that big wake-up call. I do take care of myself when I need to. I don't feel guilty if I have to lay around all day and we get takeout for dinner, because I'm here and I'm still being able to experience my family and my friends and myself, and that's what's really important.
The small cell is in my body, and they're not going to get it out. But I don't fear that I'm going to die anytime soon. I can't let that consume my life. Every time I go have an EKG, it shows slowing of the brain. It shows seizure activity. So that's what I have to live with. But I'm still alive. And I celebrate that instead of worrying about what's coming next. I celebrate life. I celebrate the fact that I was warned. I got a warning. I've been able to change my life. I've been able to do what's important to me. I've been able to spend time with my daughter. I've been able to slow down and enjoy every little bit of life.
I think God only knows how much time we have left. So even though they've told me I have less than 6 months to live, I live each day knowing that today's a good day. And, you know, God has me here for a reason, and it might be and I hope it's to help other cervical cancer survivors, patients go through what they're going through, because it's a struggle.